Everyone wants to rank well on search engines, but what about ChatGPT? My name is Bradley, I'm from SEO Vendor, and today we are diving into something different, something really exciting. SEO Vendor conducted a 4-month in-depth study on ChatGPT, exploring the impact of ChatGPT on business visibility and branding. This was a very unique approach called multi-sampling, specifically analyzing how ChatGPT 4.0 performs when generating business recommendations, like finding the best dentist in Las Vegas. I will leave a link in the description on an article that goes in depth on this subject. Now, what is LLMs? LLM stands for Large Language Model. LLMs gain traction in generating business recommendations, so understanding their effectiveness becomes crucial. This study that SEO Vendor has done examines how ChatGPT 4.0 generates lists of businesses based on varying prompts. What is our aim? To explore how factors like web browsing capabilities and prompt variations influence the quality and consistency of recommendations. We set up our experiment with 4 key conditions. ChatGPT 4.0 without web browsing. Here the model relied solely on its training data. And then ChatGPT 4.0 with web browsing. In this setup, it had real-time access to data via Bing. ChatGPT 4.0 with web browsing read-in. This allowed it to read specific articles for more tailored recommendations. And then ChatGPT 4.0 with web browsing read-in plus prompt variation. We tested 10 different ways to ask for dentist recommendations to see how phrasing influenced responses. Now, why run this experiment? We noticed a gap in understanding how well LLMs grasp brands and businesses. With Google's staggering market cap and ChatGPT being the fastest growing platform, it's essential to gauge the commercial potential of LLMs for businesses. So focusing on the Las Vegas market, we zeroed in on dentists, as this localized approach helps us assess the knowledge capabilities of ChatGPT more effectively. With 30 to 40 million businesses in the US, how will smaller firms leverage these technologies to attract new customers? The prompt variations we used simulate natural user inquiries. They range from, "Can you help me locate dentists in Las Vegas?" to, "Could you find a reputable dentist in Las Vegas for me?" Each prompt was independently tested to ensure no residual memory influenced the result. For reliability, we tracked multiple samples across all conditions. We conducted 3 sets of tests with 10, 50, and 100 iterations, resulting in over 5,700 rows of data for analysis. This extensive data allowed us to uncover patterns and inconsistencies in the model's recommendations. And in each test, we ensured that the brands and websites mentioned were legitimate, discarding any that were hallucinated by the AI. We even kept a couple of anomalies to illustrate their frequency in the results. We defined rankings in ChatGPT based on their first appearance. The model typically provided structured responses, listing business names and their websites in a natural text format. The results from our 50-time iteration sample were revealing. We measured how often dental practices appeared in responses to our prompts, using a custom validation tool to ensure accuracy. This right here is chart 1, and you can see how this chart illustrates the overlap in brand recommendations in the absence of browsing for 50 samples, showcasing repeated business names in each sample. And over here in chart 2, we compare the rankings, average, high, low, of 6 randomly selected brands. We see that there is a wide discrepancy between high and low rankings. There appears to be no specific order when we calculate the numbers, with any 0 values removed. Otherwise, the actual average across 50 interactions would be much lower, since the randomness in the results causes brands to appear rarely. As we can see from chart 1, for stunning smiles, the average in the same as the low and high because it only appeared once in 50 interactions. Chart 3 shows, despite the randomness, how often a site appears still results in a gradient curve, where a small number of sites appear much more frequently than most of the sites. With chart 4, we found that given Bing results greatly impacts the rankings of each business. Chart 5 highlights the positive impact of real-time data on the quality of recommendations, including businesses that are popular but may not have been in ChatGPT 4.0's original training set. Chart 6, we saw a dramatic fall in randomness and a much higher degree of consistency of businesses that appear. And in chart 7, when we look at selective rankings results from web browsing read-in, we saw a similar consistency with only web browsing. Notice one of the samples, stunning smiles, dropped completely out of rankings from time to time. Chart 8 shows specific mentions of niche dentists and their consistency across samples in both high and low rankings. And then most brands that appeared in chart 9 consistently reappeared across nearly all 50 iterations. And with chart 10, instead, most businesses stayed in their positions. However, a vastly different set of dentists were recommended. Those recommendations more or less stayed at the same rank despite prompt differences. Chart 11, a further analysis of how minor prompt phrasing influenced the recommended businesses. In a surprising turn of events, prompt variations did not increase variation in results, but actually limited down the possible results. In chart 12, we investigated into this and found that prompt variation itself would have to be greatly different for there to be a variation difference. This is chart 13. To dig a bit deeper, we wanted to compare all 4 experiment methods for a brand that appeared frequently. So we chose Absolute Dental. Results in chart 13 showed that web browsing rankings remained steady across sample tests that included web browsing, but since prompt variation did not result in any rankings for Absolute Dental, we compared an additional dental practice in its place in chart 14. And in chart 14, we found that a brand can experiment greater stability through iterations if web browsing was activated, but rankings can be significantly different depending on the search results or information from read-in. Whereas if web browsing was deactivated, then variations in ranking in each iteration can occur. And then in chart 15, when we compare browsing search with read-in plus prompt variation, we find that the results are similar, further providing that results from prompt variations that don't impact meaning also won't bear any significant weight on rankings. And lastly, chart 16, we can see that web browsing with read-in plus prompt variation, in the case of D for dentists, chart 16, results in higher rankings compared to browsing search. Now we did this 10x, 50x, and 100x samples, and our studies highlight several key takeaways. Branding is going to be a significant signal to have a presence in LLMs. LLMs like ChatGPT are trained with a wealth of small business brand and website knowledge. Business knowledge in ChatGPT is nowhere near perfect. It can hallucinate names or create incorrect variations of names. Website knowledge is even worse than branding knowledge in ChatGPT. And lastly, chatbots are increasingly important to businesses. More tests like these are definitely needed. As LLMs continue to evolve, businesses need to understand how to optimize their presence within these platforms. I hope the insights from this in-depth guide will help you understand LLMs and harness the power of LLMs for your business. Have a look at the article that goes in depth on this study. Also, be on the lookout as SEO Vendor released a brand new tool called Rank Lens. It's LLM's Rank Lens, and I'll be doing a video on it this week. If you have any questions, please leave it down in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like as well as the subscribe button, as SEO Vendor will be releasing a lot more new videos and a lot more new features.